Hey Ryan, so I'm looking at your um, auction problems, and yeah, um, the thing with learning this Java stuff is you want to pace yourself in a way that you're steadily moving through all the materials, so you're not skipping too much time in between and giving yourself a chance to forget. Okay, because there's some um, errors in here that were covered, like back in chapter 2. So the kind of stuff that you want to kind of, if you're steadily working through all the stuff, pacing yourself, you'll be able to keep all this stuff in mind. But I'll look through these with you, kind of one by one, and at least get you started on what you need to do here. So what I'm going to do, first of all, just to get everything to compile, is I'm going to take the code that you have in there so far and cut it, and I'm going to paste it into this text editor that I have. You can use any plain vanilla text editor. If you're on a Mac, you could use TextEdit. I'm using Notepad++ on my PC, but anything you can cut and paste and save your code that way. And then I'm going to hit compile, make sure it works. And yeah, I got no errors. So the way you want to work these problems is you want to do one at a time, get one to work before you move on to the next one. Okay, because otherwise you're just adding problem onto problem, and then it makes it harder and harder to kind of nail down what's wrong. So let's take a look first at exercise 448, what we were supposed to do for that. Let's see. So for 448, we're supposed to add a close method to the auction class. This should iterate over the collection of lots and print out details of all the lots. Use a for each loop. So you have to understand what iterate means, and you have to understand what a collection is, and you have to understand what a for each loop is, okay, in order to be able to do this problem. Any lot that has had at least one bid for it is considered to be sold. So what you are looking for is lot objects whose highest bid field is not null. So you have to know what a field is, right? And you have to know what objects are and how you access the field from an object. Use a local variable inside the loop to store the value returned from calls to the getHighestBid method. So you have to know how to call a method, right? And then test that variable for the null value. Okay, so let's kind of take this one apart here. It says add a close method. So basically, the one nice simple way of adding a new method is if you just click still inside. See, I'm inside the green rectangle above the this closing brace. So this closing brace in the green rectangle closes off this brace. This is the body of the class, right? So you want to be inside the body of the class. So that's inside this green area and outside any yellow area. You want to be outside because the yellow rectangles signify the boundaries basically of a method, right? So if I'm clicking in the green zone right here. If I say edit, insert method, it'll stick a complete example method in there for you. So, and this will actually still compile. Okay, so now you have a method that you can kind of munge around and work with, right? So let's take a look at, but we want to add a close method. Okay, now notice it starts. Let's look at what the book says about methods. Okay, so if we go back here to section 2.7, all right, it says methods have two parts, a header and a body. Okay, here's the header for getPrice. Okay, so this was back when we did the ticket machine in chapter 2, and the header has a comment, and then it says public int getPrice and parentheses. Okay, it is important to distinguish between method headers and field declarations. So what's a field declaration? Well, let me give you an example in here. A field declaration is like this guy right here is a field declaration. This is a field declaration. And this is a field declaration. Okay, a field declaration declares a field. So the field here is next lot number. That's a field of type int. And that's a place where you can store information of this type. Okay, so you can store integers in this variable, okay, by using an assignment statement like this one. So see where we say next lot number equals 1, we're assigning a 1 to the variable, to this field, next lot number. So a field is a variable. It's also called an instance variable, okay, because it refers to its value can be viewed by an instance of this class, a particular object. So once you create a particular auction object, it can, and any of these methods can access this value here. Okay, so a field is declared like this. So you have like private int, in this example, private int next lot number semicolon. You can assign it variables inside, and you can reference it inside. That's a field. A method, on the other hand, a method has two parts, as said in the book. It has a header, so here's a header, and it has a body. Okay, so let's look at some more detail of that. Okay. So it said it's important to distinguish between method headers and field declarations because they can look quite similar. We can tell that getPrice is a method and not a field because method headers always include a pair of parentheses, a left parentheses and a right parentheses, and no semicolon at the end of the header. So let's take a look. Okay, so here we have a field. See, there's a semicolon at the end. Here we have a field, semicolon at the end, and no parentheses, right? Here we have a method. A constructor is a kind of a method. It has parentheses, and there's no semicolon. Okay. Here's another method header. Okay. It has parentheses. This one has a parameter, so the parameter goes inside the parentheses. Okay, it has a parameter named description of type string. Okay. Show lots. Here's a header, parentheses with nothing in it. Okay. And here's our header sample method, and it has int y. So let's take a look at the header that you, or at the method that you used, and try compiling and see what's wrong here. So I'm going to copy this over here, and you say compile, it says a left parentheses was expected because this is supposed to be a method name, right? A method header. So a method header needs parentheses. So what we can do, we do want it to be. I'll take your I'll copy your comment here. And since it said here add a close method, we can just name our method close. So I'll just name it close. Now notice methods typically begin with lowercase letters. Okay. Classes start with uppercase letters. So class names are uppercase. Now that's not something that is enforced by the compiler, but that is a kind of a convention. The only exception is when you're making a constructor. The constructor, notice the constructor has no return type and it has the same name as the class. Okay, but all your other methods start with a lowercase and they have a return type, right? Your close method. So reading through what the close method does, let's see. Add a close method. It should iterate over the collection and print out details. Okay, so it's just going to print some stuff out. So yeah, it's not going to return any values. So that was a good call. You made it void. Right? And let's see. It's going to iterate over the collection of lots. Well, the collection of lots. So we have to be sure we're clear on what a collection is. I'll talk about that in the next one. But for now, just to get this method to compile, we're not going to have any parameters. We're not going to return anything because it's void. And we're just going to call it close. Okay, so let's just make sure that compiles. Okay, so there we have a method. The header includes, either a public or private here, a return type, a method name, which typically starts with lowercase, and parentheses, and may or may not have have parameters in it. And then it needs a left curly bracket and a right curly bracket, or braces, whatever they you want to call them. But they're the curly things that are next to the P, and you have to hold down the Shift key to type them. So so that's the step one is writing a clear method, and then in the next video we'll look at step 2.